Hey, this is Joe from Home Studio Corner, and today we're going to cover my top 10 mixing mistakes. Let's dive in. All right, mistake number 10 is starting off with bad source material. You've probably heard me say this 1,000 times, but get it right at the source, or the dumb acronym GIRATS. Get it right at the source. You ever heard of you can't polish a turd? It's true. If you're starting your mix and you've got just raw tracks pulled up and they just sound bad, nothing you do in the mix is going to make it sound amazing. You might be able to improve it a little bit. I'm talking incremental improvements. But if you start off with bad source material, you will end with a bad mix every time. Now, I'm not saying it has to be perfect. It just has to be good. All right, number 9, the dreaded double standard. How do you listen to music? Do you listen on earbuds? Great. I do too. I love my earbuds. They're great. You also probably listen in your car. That is also great. And you listen in your studio, which is also great. Or do you? See, this is where a lot of people make mistakes. They listen to mixes to their favorite music on earbuds and in the car, and then when they get to their studio, the only thing they listen to is the mix that they're working on. Do you see the problem? You take that mix, sounds good in the studio, you listen to it in the car, sounds like garbage. What do? Well, you're frustrated and you go back and forth and you can't figure out what the problem is. Here's the problem. You don't know what good mixes are supposed to sound like coming out of your studio because all you listen to is your own material. Make it a habit to listen on here, but also listen to good mixes on here. See what happens. Number 8, mixing too loudly. It's an easy thing to do, especially if you've got big honking speakers that just have a ton of volume and a ton of low end. You just want to crank things up. Crank it up, bro. Problem with that is our ears behave really differently under high sound pressure levels than they do under more reasonable levels. When the sound is really loud, our ears act like little compressors, and they actually compress the sound and cause us to hear things differently. They also get fatigued over time. So if you listen at really loud volumes, your hearing is literally going to get worse over time. Listen at a volume where you can still have a conversation over the music. Doesn't have to be super quiet, but not super loud either. Mistake number 7 is mixing with your eyeballs. That is a beautiful eyeball. See, we have all these beautiful plugins, these beautiful, maybe even beautiful hardware we run our mixes through. Great. The problem is we want to look at that beautiful hardware and make auditory decisions based on visual cues. Now, it's okay to use that for cues. I might see that there's a bump on that spectrum analyzer at a certain frequency, and I also hear that bump, and I go take care of it. But if you make mixing decisions because you look at it and it doesn't look right, red flag should be going off. Mix with your ears, not with your eyes. Mistake number 6, you probably saw this one coming. Too much reverb. For the love of all that is holy, turn down your reverbs. I don't know any other way to say it. It's like, I get it. Reverb is a fun thing. Maybe you've never had anything like it in your life, that you can take a vocal and make it sound like it's in a giant cavern. Problem is, we don't need vocals in giant caverns. Reverb is great, and I would argue reverb is making a comeback from the last couple decades of things being pretty dry, but go easy. If reverb is the main thing that I hear in your mix, there's a good chance it's not that great. To be clear, you can use a generous amount of reverb. But here's what too much reverb sounds like. Number 5, I know it's cliche, but the idea of less is more is especially true when it comes to mixing. I see a lot of people using really extreme plugin settings, and there's a place for extreme settings on occasion, in a pinch, but if you look across your mix and you see that all your plugin settings are really dramatic, huge dramatic EQ moves, tons of compression, tons of everything, might want to take a step back and simplify. You're probably hurting the mix. Okay, mistake number 4, too much boosting. You have a boost-a-thon in your mix. Here's what I mean by that. When I approach mixing, you can approach mixing 2 ways. From an additive way, what can I add to this mix to make it better? Or from a subtractive way, what can I take away to make this mix better? Additive sounds more fun, I'll be honest. Subtractive gets better results. Instead of thinking, how can I add more low end to this kick drum? The answer might be, how can I take away some of that mid-range so that I can hear the low end in that kick drum? Mistake number 3, putting plugins on every channel. I remember doing this. It's as clear as if it was yesterday when I was just learning to mix, and I would pull up a mix with 20, 30 tracks, and I would start on the kick drum by itself and put a bunch of plugins on there. Then the snare, then the left tom, then the middle tom, and I would move all the way through the mix one at a time. Couple of problems with that. First of all, you're listening to it in solo by itself, and you don't get the context of how it works in the full mix. Secondly, you might be able to get the job done better by listening to everything and just making those few key changes in the right places versus putting a whole stack of plugins on every single channel. All right, number 2 is actually going to tie in to number 3, and that is not embracing the whole top-down mixing philosophy. I talk about this a lot. Graham Cochran, my good buddy, talks about it as well. It's the idea that I could put 1 or 2 plugins on a bus, so route all the drum tracks to a drum bus, put 1 or 2 plugins there and no plugins on the individual channels and get a better sound than if I put a bunch of plugins on every single drum track in that mix. Take a listen. Here are the drums with no plugins. And here are the drums with just 1 EQ and 1 compressor on the drum bus. That's it. I don't want to say less is more, but before we dive into number 1, first of all, thank you for watching. Secondly, I've got a new mixing course coming out. Brand new. It's incredible. I'm excited for you to check it out. The way to find out about it is to sign up for my email list, and I'll send you an email when it's ready. Okay, the way to get on my email list is to go to 5stepmix.com. I'll send you a free 5-step mix guide that gets you on the email list, and you'll be able to find out once the course is open. All right, we've made it to beautiful number 1. The number 1 mistake people make when mixing is this right here: never finishing their mixes. Set the expectation that your first several mixes aren't going to be that great. Then you can just relax and just go through them, finish mix after mix after mix, and you'll start to see improvement. But if you hone in and only want to work on something till it's perfect, you will literally never get there, and you also won't get any better. Hey, thanks so much for watching this. I really do appreciate you. I'll see you in the next one.